And if this results in a full invasion, it's going to be the largest military action in Europe since World War II. And we don't know where this is going to stop, but in Putin's speech, he made it clear that this is about more than just these territories in the east. He said that if the Ukrainian side did not de-escalate, the complete responsibility for the possibility of a continuation of bloodshed would be fully and wholly on the conscience of the regime ruling the territory of Ukraine. And that, sitting here in Kyiv, has sent shivers down my spine, and I think down the spines of many of the people watching that.
Valerie, thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Valerie Hopkins covers Russia for the New York Times. On Monday, President Biden announced the first set of sanctions against Russia, saying they would escalate if Russia pushed further into Ukraine. European leaders announced a range of sanctions. The UK imposed sanctions on 5 Russian banks, also freezing the assets of some Russian businessmen, while Germany is halting the opening of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. The US has also ordered Americans to stop doing business in rebel-held areas of Ukraine.
The Daily is supported by Progressive Insurance for protecting everything under one roof by bundling home and auto. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And by Fidelity Investments. Introducing Fidelity Income Planning. Build a plan for income that lasts. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. Get the story firsthand with The Daily from the New York Times, hosted by Michael Barbaro and distributed by American Public Media.
The Daily is powered by the journalism of the New York Times and is distributed by APM, American Public Media. You can go deeper into the stories you hear on The Daily by going to nytimes.com/The Daily. That's it for The Daily. I'm Sabrina Tavernise. See you tomorrow.
Support for Radio IQ comes from Peace Frogs Travel Outfitters, a full-service travel agency and travel outfitter serving Charlottesville and beyond since 1993. Open Saturdays 10 to 4 and personal packing demos by appointment. And Gentry Lock Attorneys, committed to outcomes that matter for clients and referring professionals. Offices in Roanoke, Lynchburg, and Richmond. More information at gentrylock.com.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Call into order the February 22nd, 7 p.m. City Council meeting. And I will ask, Madam Clerk, I did not even notice you weren't present.
That's all right.
We were so anxious to get started.
That's all right.
Now that you're here, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'll be glad to. Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Here.
Vice Mayor White Boyd,
Here.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Here.
Mr. Cobb,
Here.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Here.
Ms. Moon Reynolds.
Here.
And Mayor is absent this afternoon.
And a quorum is present. I would like to recognize Councilman Bestfitch this time.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I move that the agenda for this meeting be amended to add item C, unfinished business, by taking from the table items 7A7 through 7A12 from the 2 p.m. agenda.
Second.
It has moved and been properly seconded, and the new agenda is adopted.
We got to vote.
Call the roll. All right, I will call the roll. Ms. Sanchez Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Aye.
Mr. Cobb,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffrey,
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds,
Aye.
and Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye. And now the new agenda is adopted. I would like to recognize our very own council member Stephanie Moon Reynolds to do the invocation, and after the invocation, I will lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please stand. Please take whatever posture you so desire as we invoke the Lord in this meeting. Our God, my God, who art in heaven, we come to you today praying for a sense of your presence. We are asking you to give us the knowledge and the wisdom to do those things that are pleasing to your sight and in the best interest of this community. Give us the courage to change our minds when that is needed. And let us be tolerant of the thoughts of others, for we never know in what voice you will speak. And finally, grant that we may know that without thee we could do nothing, but in thee all things are possible. And may all God's people say, Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Moon Reynolds. Welcome, everyone, to our 7 p.m. meeting. It's good to see all of you. I am going to ask for a certification of our closed meeting. Councilmember Cobb?
Glad to do that. I move with respect to any closed meeting just concluded that each member of City Council in attendance certify to the best of his or her knowledge that 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in any motion by which any closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the members of council in attendance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Trish White Boyd.
Aye. Council meetings will be televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and video streamed through Facebook Live at facebook.com/RoanokeVA. Council meetings are offered with closed captioning for the hearing impaired. We are now at item A, public hearings. Number 1, request of Franklin Road LLC to vacate an alley running north from Franklin Road Southwest towards Luck Avenue Southwest, adjacent to property located at 117 Franklin Road Southwest, with Dave Jones, the agent and spokesperson. I will note the Planning Commission continued the above matter until Monday, March 14th at 1:30 p.m. in the council chamber. Therefore, council does not have jurisdiction over this matter at this time. Item number 2, request of Greater Roanoke Transit Company to vacate a 10-foot wide alley between and parallel to 11th Street Southeast and 12th Street Southeast. Kevin Price, general manager, is the spokesperson. There is one measure and ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Clerk, could you read the title paragraph?
An ordinance permanently vacating, discontinuing,
and closing a 10-foot wide alley between and parallel to 11th Street Southeast and 12th Street Southeast, extending perpendicular from the southern edge of Campbell Avenue Southeast approximately 175 feet to the northern edge of Kirk Avenue Southeast, as more particularly described hereinafter, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
I will note that the City Planning Commission approved this on a vote of 4-0. And I will recognize Mr. Price at this time for any comments.
Yeah, and actually, I think Wayne can answer any questions as well from the Planning Commission. So.
Okay, at this time, I will open the public hearing. Are there any citizens wishing to be heard? Don't
No.
have any. Okay. Okay, so I will close the public hearing. Are there any comments by council? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Item number 3 is a request of Blue Ridge Memorial Gardens Incorporated to rezone the southernmost 2.21 acre corner portion of property located at 5721 Airport Road Northwest from ROS Recreation and Open Space District to OG Commercial General District to proffer the development of the property subject to a development plan. Ben Crew is the agent from Balzar and Associates. Is anybody from Balzar and Associates? There is one measure, an ordinance.
Move the ordinance. Second.
Clerk, could you read the title paragraph?
Yes. An ordinance rezoning the southernmost 2.26 acre corner portion of certain property located at 5721 Airport Road Northwest, bearing official tax map number 6630103 from ROS Recreation and Open Space District to CG Commercial General District, subject to a condition, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
The City Planning Commission approved on a 4-0 vote. And at this time, I will recognize Mr. Crew for any comments.
Good evening, members of council. I'll be happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, did we have any citizens
I
wishing
do not.
to be heard? Or, well, I will close the public hearing and look at my colleagues to see if you all have any questions. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Jeffrey?
I just want to confirm, the proposed use of the land is for a funeral home, is that correct?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Well, Madam Clerk, if there are no further questions, I'll ask you to call the roll.
All right. Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Thank you, Mr. Crew. Item number 4, proposal of the City of Roanoke to receive public comments on 2 amendments to the 2024 HUD Consolidated Plan and revisions to the Citizens Participation Plan. I will call on Mr. Cowell when it's time. Now we have 2 measures, a resolution and a budget ordinance.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Clerk, could you read the title paragraph?
A resolution approving certain amendments, excuse me, to the City of Roanoke's 2020-2024 HUD Consolidated Plan and Citizen Participation Plan, authorizing the city manager or the city manager's designee to execute all necessary documents required for such amendments, and further authorizing the city manager or the city manager's designees to submit such amendments to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for final review and approval.
At this time, I will recognize our city manager, Mr. Cowell, for any comments he may have.
Nothing to add, but in case there are any questions, Keith Holland's here, should you have any specific questions. So,
Thank you, Mr. Cowell. I will open the public hearing. Are there any citizens that signed up, Madam Clerk, on this matter?
None.
Well, I will close the public hearing and ask my colleagues if there are any comments or questions.
I did have a question.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
The question I have is with regards to, it says that the Belmont Fallon target area will be the first to be part of this plan. And I just wanted to know what makes this plan unique for that area.
Yeah, and when you speak of the plan, we're talking about, sorry, I'm trying to pull up that particular item because I want to make sure I get the right terminology, but it's the stabilization plan. And so what it will allow us to do, as you all know, we have been able to focus our energy and funding, our portion of funding from our HUD dollars into certain neighborhoods. So previously MODA, currently the Belmont Fallon. This is a tool that actually will increase the flexibility that we can use in that one. So, for example, there's different ways that we can account for the incomes of individuals when we're trying to do like job programs in the area that allow that additional flexibility. There are others too that Keith can kind of go into more detail, but this will be the first time that we're actually trying to do this. And the idea is that it'll give us many more tools as we move forward with the particular target area as we go on with the development of that plan. And there's, I think attached to your packet, there was like a 70-page, and that's the piece we have to submit to HUD to actually begin the work associated with it. But the key is really tied around more flexibility in what we're allowed to do with those dollars. And I wanted to see if I can, let me give you an example in more detail. So, for example, I'll use the job creation one as an example. So the job creation retention activities undertaken within this in this area that we're talking about may be qualified as meeting the area benefit national objectives, thus eliminating the need for businesses to track personal income and maintain records for jobs held by or made available to low and moderate income. So it makes it easier for the end user. That's just one example, which therefore should increase the chances of someone actually wanting to open up a business under that provision. And there are similar provisions for both the housing programs as well as the public benefit standards associated with it as well. So there's just several different options that we would not otherwise have available as we move forward in the use of it's still the use of our CDBG funds and other HUD funds, but just in a more complete way or more flexible way. And again, Keith can offer more details if you have.
And would this plan only be specifically just for the Belmont Fallon, or would you be able to use it in Gilmer when you look at the 5-year plan for Gilmer?
Well, if we move into another area, we may be able to apply
That's
the
what-
same.
okay.
Yes. So right now, this one is exclusive for this area.
Yeah.
And I think in the plan, Keith, am I right, that in that plan, we actually have to define the boundaries of the area that we're proposing, and then all the demographics come along with that piece as well. So.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Another important tool that we would have at our disposal is to create a CBDO, a community-based development organization, which allows some flexibility for use of CDBG funds and also for business economic development efforts as well. Right now, CDBG funds cannot be used to construct new homes, but a CBDO can use those funds for new home construction.
Yeah, and I think if you all remember, toward the end of the Melrose Orange target area, one of the things that came out of that process in conversation with council at the time was a desire to actually increase the focus on economic development inside the target areas and not just on housing. So this is definitely one of those ways that we're hoping to be able to accomplish that in an easier fashion.
Okay, well, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes. I want to make sure that, did we get a motion on that?
Yes, the resolution has been read. There was a first and a second.
Okay. I will call the roll now. Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb? Mr. Jeffrey?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye, and the resolution passes. There is a budget ordinance.
Move the budget ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, could you read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for home ARP funds, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2021-2022 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
Could you call the roll?
Oh, okay. call the roll now?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffrey?
Aye.
Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye, and the budget ordinance passes. Moving on to item number 5, a report of the city manager recommending execution of a parking agreement subject to certain terms and conditions to obtain up to 45 parking permits for the use of not more than 45 unreserved parking spaces in the city's center in the square garage located at 11 Campbell Avenue southeast. And there is one measure and ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Clerk, would you read the title paragraph? Trying to give you a chance to catch up. I see you
Thank you.
scribbling.
Yes. An ordinance accepting the bid of J.S. Master Tenant LLC, doing business as the Liberty Trust, to execute a parking agreement with an initial term of 20 years, with such entity having the option to renew such parking agreement for up to 4 additional 5-year periods, and which parking agreement will allow such entity to obtain up to 45 unreserved parking permits for use of spaces in the city's center in the square garage upon certain terms and conditions, authorizing the city manager to execute such a parking agreement, authorizing the city manager to take such further action and execute such further documents as may be necessary to implement, administer, and enforce such parking agreement, rejecting any other bids, and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
I will recognize our city manager, Mr. Cowell. Do you have any comments?
Thank you. Just to kind of quickly remind folks what we're doing, this is actually not the first time that we've been here doing this. So this is actually tied to the Liberty Trust building, which of course is being converted into a hotel and is scheduled to open very soon. And of course, there's been a time period by which performance has to occur, which has not been met, which is why we're having to come back and do this again. But what this will do is provide parking opportunities, is how I would describe it, in the center in the square garage for those tenants, the guests that are actually at the hotel. There are not reserved spaces. There are just 45 spaces in there that would be available for the use. As a part of that, if you remember, we started a couple of years ago a process of changing how we manage our garages, moving away from the booths that were staffed by people to the automatic systems that exist. Those automatic systems have a number of advantages. One of those is the garages then are controlled basically 24 hours a day. This moves further in this direction in order to manage the way that we're discussing. And of course, by doing that, we have to establish the rates for those hours that right now you're not charged for because there's nobody staffing those. So those are the pieces that are wrapped up in it. If you have any specific questions, certainly Brian is here, can answer any of those as well about the operations. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody else here. So, and if you have any other questions about the project as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowell, and I will open the public hearing. There's no citizens signed up that I'm aware of, so I'll close the public hearing and go to my colleagues. Mr. Cobb?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So this will be up to 45 spots?
Correct.
I'm just trying to envision with Center in the Square what parking, and I support this because the hotel needs the parking space. What I'm curious about is how many spots that's going to leave open for general parking, because that's one of the heavily used parking garages downtown for events.
Yeah,
at
I'm going to
Center in the
ask
Square.
Brian, do you want to come up? Can I talk about how this actually operates?
Sure.
Is it?
Yeah. No, I'm excited about the hotel and parking. I just trying to make sense.
Thank you, Council, Vice Mayor White Boyd. I'll kind of let Jamie answer that real quick as far as occupancy and how many spots are available.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that garage has 203 spots. 20 of those are reserved for 204 Jefferson. And there are approximately 20 monthly parking spaces in there currently, but those are only guaranteed between the hours of 6 and 6. So that'll leave 140 spaces. And with this parking agreement, it is up to, so it's just going to be based on occupancy. So if he only needs 20, then there would be only 20 spaces that would be reserved for the hotel.
And that's part of the reason why we don't reserve actual specific spaces.
Right,
So
right.
that you won't drive in there and find an empty space, say, sorry, that's reserved for the hotel guest. That's not the case. Those spaces would be available for sale or for rent.
So just to recap, there are 203, is that,
Right.
203 spaces, 20 are reserved for 204 Jefferson
That's correct.
tenants, 20 for monthly parking.
Right. That's
And then-
only guaranteed between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Okay. And then up to 40, is that what you were saying?
Oh, just up to 45.
Up to 45. And that would depend on occupancy?
Right.
Right, okay, thank you.
You probably can't answer this question, but since we're talking about parking in that garage, are we going to have the same system, Mr. Powell? Because that line was atrocious not long ago. I don't.
Yes.
Is it better?
Yeah, the system will be the same system we're using in all the other garages. So, yes.
Yeah, and just to answer your question, I think what you're talking about is after special events at Mill Mountain Theater, we've experienced delays at the exit.
Yeah,
And we've
yeah, that's
taken
what I'm talking
all
about.
of our steps to try to alleviate that. We're now charging on the way in for special events, so it slows down the exit, so they don't have to stop and pay. We're also putting an attendant down there to help people go to the pay at foot station. And we're also working with Mill Mountain Theater to pre-sell parking if at all possible.
That's what I was looking for. I appreciate that because I
You're
was at an
welcome.
event there a couple of weeks ago, and the car ahead of us we thought was just plain, they just weren't very keen. And then my husband and I were both college educated. I had to get out of the car and go around and try to figure
Yeah.
out how to get it out, open it up. So it was a little bit of a problem before, but a live attendant would be helpful because it is not working like it should. I mean, people should not be lined up to get out of special events like that.
And we've also placed signage down there, as I talked to Councilman Cobb about, some people might struggle with the instructions on how to do it, so we placed signage down there to kind of give people the prompts to get out in a timely fashion.
That's going to be helpful because a lot of people don't realize you have to put it in and pull it right back out because most of the ones downtown, you have to put your card in and leave it in there until it prompts you to do something.
Yes.
So it works just the opposite. So
Right.
it's not that people are not very smart, it's just that they're used to a different system. So thank you for that response to that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Are there any other
I
questions?
just have one
Ms. Moon
question
Reynolds?
with regards to the parking garage.
Yes, ma'am.
What happens when one of the patrons are leaving and they do pay and the arm does not come up? And you're
Okay,
sitting
so-
there.
There is a little button, like an on-call button that's 24/7 monitored by a company that we contract with. So you press that button, that person on the other end somewhere in the country comes on, and if they can't walk you through the process of getting your payment, that they can raise the arm remotely from whatever location that they're at.
And what happens when that person cannot be contacted? The reason why I asked that
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it happened to me.
Okay?
I ended up calling the city manager trying to get out. We had cars backed up and there was no help.
Okay. Jim, you want to speak real quickly on that?
Yeah, so you push the button and no one came.
Yes. In fact, it was the lady in front of me who was having it, trying her best. And then when she did get out, it was my turn. And same thing happened. And
So when you pushed it, did it ring? Or?
yes, but there was
No
no
one
answer
answered.
on the other side.
So
I just asked
right.
that to say,
Certainly,
you may
no,
want to check on that to make sure.
No,
Yeah,
it's-
there
that
should
there
be
is
phone
a-
numbers
a
on this.
person.
There should be phone numbers on the signage
Yeah.
down there as part of our contract with Jamie and Reef Parking, is that there's always a supervisor on call 24/7. A situation like that, we would do our best to get down there, either with a manager or a maintenance person to get down there to let you out as fast as possible.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch? Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffrey? Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Moving on to item B, other business. Number one, an amendment of the parking rates to be charged for 24-hour continuous parking at the Center in the Square parking garage. There is one measure, an ordinance.
Move the ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Read the title paragraph
Yes.
first.
Okay. An ordinance amending certain parking fees to be charged at the Center in the Square parking garage, the Elmwood parking garage, and the Elmwood lot, providing for an effective date and dispensing with the second reading of this ordinance by title.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb? Mr. Jeffrey? Ms. Moon Reynolds? And Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye, and the ordinance passes. Item number C was added, unfinished business. I would like a motion to remove item 7A7 through 7A12 from the 2 p.m. agenda from the table for reconsideration.
We've already taken
Oh, you
care of that,
Oh, okay,
Madam Vice Mayor. We
okay.
just need to reconsider those items from the 2
Okay, this-
p.m. agenda.
Okay, yeah, this
I
is
so
right.
move that we reconsider those items from the 2 o'clock PM, agenda 7A7, 7 through 7A12, the budget ordinances.
And just for the public's sake, these will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, the items, of course, may be removed and considered separate.
Is there a motion? She made it, and is there a second?
We need a second.
Did I hear a second?
Okay, yes, we
Okay.
heard a second.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Sanchez Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb? Mr. Jeffrey? Ms. Moon Reynolds?
Just one question before, aye. Aye.
And Vice Mayor White Boyd.
Aye. And the items are approved. Moving on to item D, hearing of citizens upon public matters. City Council sets this time as a priority for citizens to be heard. If deemed appropriate, matters will be referred to the city manager for response, recommendation, or report to the council. Did we have any speakers to sign up?
No, we do not.
No speakers. Well, there being no further business to come before the council meeting is adjourned.